morning, everyone. I'm Apostolos Mangiriadis. Thank you very much. Thank you to ENE, the President, the administration for inviting me for an intense talk with Dr. Habeck. You have given us a very nice start previously at your presentation. Let me start by asking you a few questions, taking some stimulus from what you just said. Let's start with Germany and its economic role. And the model, of course. You talked about cheap energy from Russia, export to China, and the fact that you didn't have to spend enough for your defense. So, what replaces it, and how quickly can this transformation really happen? Because you made a reference to Greece. It took us 10 years for some kind of modernization of our economy. We're in the process, but nevertheless, the cost, the economic, the political, and the social cost was tremendous. So the question here is, how quickly can Germany transform itself?
Well, this is, of course, up to political decisions, but I'm not so pessimistic about it because it's happening already. Remember that my government, I served in, broke because we couldn't find 7 billion euros. This is maybe a lot of money for the Greek budget, but not so much for Germany. It's like nothing, actually, but we couldn't find 7 billion euros. And now, and the debt break was kind of a religious belief for some of the conservatives and also my liberal coalition partner. But the moment after the election, they changed it. So the financial question is now solved, and the now acting government has a lot of money to spend. I hope they spend it wisely and fast. But this is a big step forward. So, and see, Germany has a lot of, due to the past, a lot of financial firepower if we want to use it. And getting rid of bureaucracy, spending the money, doing investments, changing the people's attitude to defense industry, developing, I would say, attracting talents from maybe also from the Americans, creating a capital market union. This is not like magic. This is just political work. And I think with a strong reform agenda, you could do it in the next maybe 1.5 years, all the legislative work, and then it might take to see some reactions. But I think in 3 years' time, we expect growth numbers in Germany already next year, but growth driven by debts, actually. This is now public spending, but we need private money going into the sectors. And I think this might, we really see a boost that might take 2 years, I would say.
Okay.
So, but this is possible. 10 years would definitely be too long in the world we are living in.
You talked about reindustrializing. I'm sorry for the reindustrializing Europe, of course. But can we do this while drowning in our own regulation and the climate bureaucracy?
Well, reindustrialization is, I don't know if I have ever used this, but I don't like really the term. Germany has a lot of industries. I mentioned it due to a lot of other European countries have lost their energy-driven industry, chemical industry, steel industry, aluminum industry. Most of the Nordic countries have lost it. France, I think, lost half of it in the past 10 years. Great Britain, in the Thatcher years, if you count Great Britain still to Europe, Germany still has it. So we don't need reindustrialization. And taking back energy-intense industry and commodity goods that could be used somewhere else cheaper in the world, like Donald Trump is trying to do now, I think this is not the way forward. I think we should concentrate on everything that is new, all innovation technologies. I mean, even if we do better with bureaucracy, even if there would be some effect on taxes and maybe on wages, we will never be the cheapest producing country in the world. Never. Indonesia will always be cheaper, as cheaper as Greece and cheaper as Germany, for a reason. I mean, we are a welfare state, and this is actually an achievement. But where we can do better is with everything that requires research, development, cooperation, using all the data that is stored in the German small and medium-sized companies. And I think this is the way forward, not looking to the past and trying to think how we can bring the past back to Germany, but creating the future.
The US is spending big in the green transition. Europe is talking about rules. Doesn't Europe need more fiscal firepower and less fiscal dogma to compete with the US?
I doubt that the US is now spending too much in the green transition. I mean, it's still happening because a lot of renewables and transformation things are done by the state, so the state of California, but even the state of Texas, governed by Republican Party, are still investing into solar and wind due to the immense energy hunger of the data centers. So they buy every molecule or every kilowatt hour they can get. And of course, there's a lot of talk about building new nuclear reactors or small and medium-sized reactors, but this takes a while. And I think the cheapest and maybe the fastest way forward still for a lot of countries in the US is using renewables and batteries. And therefore, it's now the tech companies who are investing heavily also into the renewables, but the Trump government, I doubt. They have more found their love with the fossil energy, I think. But true, Europe has to do better in regulations in all kinds of fields. Actually, the energy sector is one of the success stories where Europe has proven under the enormous pressure of the energy crisis in 2022 and so forth, that permitting processes, regulations could be faster and more efficient. So my take would be we should learn from what we means Europe now, have done in the energy sector and apply it to every other sector. Yesterday evening, we talked about defense industry, and I'm not the right one to explain it to you because I think Evie is here in this room, and but this is the next step, and rightly so. We can't wait and sit and hope that Putin or whoever might be a threat to European security says, yeah, well, you have this funny regulation that takes 12 years to make a decision maybe, then I wait 12 years before something's bad going to happen. So I asked our Lithuanian friend, this is wrong, so speeding up everything, but from the energy sector, I think the lesson can be learned. The problem is in the single market, in competition rules, in maybe trade rules. So I think that is the question.
Germany shut down some nuclear plants before the energy crisis hit. Was that a principled decision looking back, or is it a strategic misstep? What do you think?
Well, it was a strategic decision in the year 2012. So this is the story when Fukushima in Japan, Germany, and the Germans have are always afraid. Mm-hmm. So German Angst, you know the term, I think. So the German government, that time led by the Conservative Party and the Liberals, and my party, the Greens, of course, backed them as we were founded as an anti-nuclear movement, decided to phase out of nuclear energy. I think in that time we had 40 nuclear power plants. 11 of them were shut down when I entered office. 3 of them were still operating with an end date, New Year's Eve 2021. So we used them a little bit longer. We prolonged them as long as they had nuclear energy, and then they phased off. These 3 power plants counted for 5% of German's electricity production. So it's something, but not like this would change everything. And on the other side, we had have now an immense increase of renewable energy. So the question, I think it's fair to say we don't need nuclear energy for energy security. The question that is on the table is the price issue. As we are using energy for our industry, and we have a lot of energy-intense industry, the question is, could nuclear energy reduce the price burden at least a little bit? And of course, the answer is yes, it could. So therefore, 5% is a lot. But it's not that the nuclear power plant is the most important part for driving the prices. I think you are familiar with the way the electricity market system works. It's always the most expensive power plant that sets the price for everyone, which in normal times has a great economic effect because then the cheapest energy has the highest gains to earn. So the cheaper you produce, the more the more outcome you have. So this is actually a fine and an attractive market design, but in times of crisis, not so much. And the most important and most expensive power plants are gas power plants. So what would be the effect of nuclear energy? It would raise the ground level of not gas power plants, but the peak is always set by gas power plants, bringing prices down in Germany, and I would say in all of Central Europe, and maybe also Greece was affected, is getting cheaper gas or reducing the prices for gas power plants because they are setting the price of all. So for a practical reason, I would say there is some effect. Still, I don't think it was a strategic mistake because the German energy system, very similar to the Greek system, should run on 80% renewables by 2030. And the investment decisions are more or less taken. The permitting processes are more or less done. And nuclear power plants do not really match with renewable energies. Baseload power plants, as nuclear power plants are, you can't switch them on and off. But what Germany needs, and I guess sooner on Greece needs as well, are peak power plants. Power plants that really can push into the hours of the day where energy is needed and then reduce their production when you don't need it anymore. So, and I was afraid that time as a minister that this strategy that already was underlaid with investment decisions from other companies would be destroyed if we now re-enter nuclear energy.
Let's wrap this up by with a question on the automobile industry in Germany. It has faced some tremendous challenges over the course of the last couple of years. How do you see this evolving? Can you share your optimism and pessimism about it?
It's a split analysis, I would say. First of all, you have to be aware that changing an existing system, like the production capacity of the combustion engine-driven automotive industry, or building a new one is something completely different, and the ones who building a new system have always a price advantage. So Elon Musk, when he established Tesla, was basically a guy coming from credit card business. So there was no experience. They hadn't produced huge amounts of they don't have the fabs, they don't have the whatever research supply chain for combustion engines, so they could build up Tesla from the scratch and inventing the platform and the battery production just out of nowhere. The same is true for Chinese automotive companies. Basically, all these companies were telecommunication companies before. Changing a 100-year-old tradition, meaning you have to pay for the costs, employees, fabs that are there, and develop something new. And therefore, of course, it's harder for European automotive industries to become electric. I think that it is wrong now to ask, can we slow down the process? Because the market has made a decision right now, and Chinese cars will overtake if we don't speed up. So if I can put it in one sentence, the one thing Germany not has is to be too fast in any sector. So I would advise the automotive companies not to ask to prolong the combustion engine, but to do everything that they can produce also cheap cars that are wanted in the electric market.
Dr. Habeck, thank you very much for this intense fireside chat. Let me pass the floor to Pavlos Efthymiou for the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much.